A pleasant day to everyone. This is Dr. Catherine Dukeli from the Department of Preventive and Community Medicine. So, welcome to the new year. We will start off with our lecture on health indices in the community. At the end of the lecture, we expect the students to define rate, ratio, and proportion, to explain the concepts of prevalence and incidence, to discuss the analysis of rates, and finally to discuss the common statistical data indices used in population studies. Let's start with rate. Rate is the frequency of events that occur in a defined time period, divided by the average number of people at risk during the period being studied. It is an estimate of risk. In rates, there is always a component of time, be it an hour, a period, or a year. The equation of rate is equal to the number of cases occurring during the given time period over the population at risk during the same period times 10 to the nth power. So the value of 10 to the nth power is usually 1 or 100 for common attributes. For rare attributes, and for most diseases, the value may be higher, like 1,000, 100,000, or 1 million. We have criteria for the valid use of rates. So number 1, all events counted in the numerator must have happened to persons in the denominator. For example, dyspnea or difficulty of breathing in certain individuals could be our numerator, and for our denominator, we will have asthmatic individuals. So as you can see, difficulty of breathing is something that happens to asthmatic individuals. So it's the rate of difficulty of breathing in asthmatic individuals. So number 2, all of the persons counted in the denominator must have been at risk for the events in the numerator. For example, sexually transmitted disease in commercial sex workers. So commercial sex workers may not have the disease, but they have a higher risk of contracting STD due to the nature of their work. So you have to remember, when comparing rates, numerators for all groups being compared must be defined or diagnosed in the same way. For example, gamers may mean those involved in online gaming or those in the casino. So you have to be specific with how you define your numerator. Constant multipliers being used must be the same. So multipliers would mean your nth power should be constant for all compared rates. For example, times 100,000 population for all rates. And then lastly, time intervals must be the same. So all time units must be the same. If the time component is an hour, then you may only compare it to rates with hours as units, or you may do conversion. Ratio is the simplest of all statistical measures, and there are no conditions on their use. It is often expressed as one number divided by another number. Expressions of a relationship between two quantities which can be related or totally independent of each other. For example, the ratio of boys to girls in first year is 1:3, or independent of each other. The ratio of the tables to the first year student is 1:10. Proportion is a special type of ratio. What's in the numerator is also counted in the denominator. For example, the proportion of girls in the class who are single. So single is your numerator over the total number of girls in class. As you can see, the number of singles are still accounted for in the denominator. So it's usually expressed as a percentage and reflects events in selected portions of a population. So usually we want to know the proportion of the selected characteristics you wish to assess in a given population. We now go to health indices, under which we have the fertility rates, mortality rates, and morbidity rates. What are health indices? So health indices are measurements that are used as indicators to reflect the health status of a population. They cover incidence and prevalence of a disease, and as well as frequencies of morbidity and mortality. There are selected indices of community health. Number 1, we have morbidity rates, under which we have the prevalence rate, incidence rate, and the attack rate. For the fertility rates, we have the crude birth rate and the general fertility rate. And lastly, for the mortality rates, we have a lot, but we shall go through most as we go along. For the morbidity rates, we have the incidence rate and the prevalence rate. Incidence rate measures how fast an infection or disease condition occurs. It considers only new cases seen during a specific time period, and it usually is used to measure acute events like outbreaks or epidemics, or the pandemic we are having now, which is the COVID-19, and is used also for monitoring the occurrence of certain events like the development of non-communicable disease in a population. So the key word in incidence rate is only new cases. The formula for incidence rate is equal to the number of people who develop disease during a particular time over the average number of people in the population, usually the mid-year population, times F, where F is the factor which is usually a multiple of 10, depending on what is convenient. Prevalence rate is the proportion of the population that has the disease at a specific point in time. It includes those who already have the disease at the start of the study period and the new cases seen during the same study period. So it's a good measure to use for chronic illness, example for TB, hypertension, diabetes mellitus, or long-standing illnesses. It is determined by means of survey. The key here is both who already have the disease plus the new cases. The formula for prevalence rate is equal to the number of people with the disease, take note, old and new cases at a given point in time over the total number of people in the population, times F, again, which should be a multiple of 10, depending on what is convenient to the scenario. Point prevalence is a measure of the proportion of the population with the disease at a single point in time or a particular date. It is equal to the total cases, again old and new, at a fixed point of time over the total population at that same fixed point of time times 100. Period prevalence, it's basically the same, the proportion of the population with the disease at any time, but this is during a specified period or interval of time. So as prevalence rate, it is the total cases old and new at the fixed period or interval of time over the total population at the same period or interval of time times 100. Here are the factors influencing the observed prevalence rate. Again, we have to put in mind our numerator, which is the number of people with the disease, old and new cases at a given point in time, over the total number of people in the population as our denominator. So anything that will increase the numerator or decrease the denominator will, of course, result to an increase in prevalence rate. So anything that will increase the old cases or the new cases or both will increase the numerator, therefore increase the prevalence rate. So prevalence rate is increased by longer duration of the disease because it will increase the old cases. Prolongation of life of patients without cure will increase old cases. Of course, the in-migration of cases will increase the old and new cases. The out-migration of healthy people will decrease the total number of people in the population. So the numerator is divided by a smaller number and therefore there is an increase in prevalence rate. The in-migration of susceptible people, meaning higher risk of getting the disease, thus increasing the new cases. And of course, improved diagnostic facilities, which will mean more new cases detected. Prevalence ratio will be decreased by anything that will decrease the numerator or anything that will increase the denominator. Again, anything that will decrease the old cases or the new cases or both will decrease the numerator, therefore will result to a decreased prevalence rate. So prevalence rate is decreased by shorter duration of the disease because it will decrease the old cases. High case fatality rate from the disease would decrease the old cases because of the death. Decrease in new cases or the decrease in incidence. In-migration of healthy people would increase the denominator. Therefore, our numerator will be divided by a bigger number, hence decreasing the prevalence rate. Out-migration of cases would decrease both old and new cases. And improved cure rate of cases would decrease old cases. For the fertility rates, we have the crude birth rate, general fertility rate, and the total birth rate. So we have the indices of fertility. First, we have the crude birth rate. It is the total live births in a year over the mid-year population times 1,000. Crude birth rate is called crude because only live births are counted and the denominator is the total population, which would include children, old people, and males. Mid-year population is used because it is a good approximation of the average of the population at the start of the year and the population at the end of the year. General fertility rate is the total live births in a year all over the mid-year population of women 15 to 44 years old times 1,000. General fertility rate is the reproductive capacity of the country. Hence, the age inclusion is 15 to 44 years old would mean the reproductive age of women. We have the total birth rate, which is the total live births plus fetal deaths over the mid-year population times 1,000. For the mortality rates, we have the crude death rate, specific death rates, cause-specific death rates, proportionate mortality rates, infant mortality rates, neonatal mortality rates, fetal death ratio, fetal death rate, and the prenatal mortality rate. So for the mortality rates, we have the crude death rate, the death rate from a particular cause, which is cause-specific, age-specific death rate, sex-specific death rate, and case fatality rate. Crude death rate is equal to the total deaths from all causes in a year all over the mid-year population times 1,000. Crude death rate is usually the risk of dying of a population from all causes for a given time or year. Maternal mortality rate is equal to deaths among women due to maternal causes over total live births for the year times 1,000. The ideal denominator is actually the number of pregnant women, but data is difficult to retrieve because it is a dynamic data that changes in months' time and the late detection of pregnancy. So maternal mortality rate measures risk of dying due to pregnancy, childbirth, and puerperium. Puerperium is the period 6 weeks after childbirth. So maternal mortality rate assess the adequacy and the accessibility of health facilities. It measures the quality of medical services and of maternal prenatal behavior. The MMR indicates progress of a nation in providing adequate nutrition and medical care for pregnant women. The infant mortality rate is equal to the total infant deaths in a year over the total live births during the year times 1,000. It is the state of health of infants and measures the risk of dying before 1 year of age. The infant mortality rate may also be used to measure the adequacy of health services available as that of the MMR. But note, not all infants who die in a year were born on the same year. The infant mortality rate can be artificially decreased by increasing denominator by better reporting of live births. So a high infant mortality ratio may be due to, again, anything that will increase your numerator will increase your rate. So our numerator is the total infant deaths in a year. So high incidence of communicable or infectious disease will increase the total infant deaths in a year. The poor state of sanitation and the inadequate health facilities also increase the total infant deaths in a year. Hence, there is an increase in the infant mortality rate. Neonatal mortality rate is the risk of dying in the first 4 weeks of life or the first 28 days of life. It is equal to the neonatal deaths over the total number of live births times 1,000. So perinatal mortality rate measures the risk of dying during the period of birth, which is the fetal death or the death inside the uterus plus neonatal death or newborn death. It is computed by the sum of number of stillbirth and number of death of infants under 7 days of age all over the sum of number of stillbirths plus the number of live births times 1,000. The fetal death rate is the state of health of unborn children. So it is computed by the number of deaths during the year over the number of live births and fetal deaths during the same year times 1,000. The fetal death ratio measures the risk of dying before birth. It is equal to the number of deaths during the year over the number of live births in the same year times 1,000. For other mortality rates, we have the cause-specific death rates, which measures risk of dying due to a particular cause. So for example, we have TB as a particular cause. It is the number of deaths from TB in 2010 over the mid-year population of 2010 times 1,000. Proportionate mortality rate measures the magnitude of death from a particular cause. For example, number of deaths from TB in 2010 over the total number of deaths in 2010 times 100. Case fatality rate measures the killing power of a disease and is called the lethality rate or the killing rate. For example, number of deaths from TB in 2010 over total number of TB cases for 2010 times 100. So how many of those TB cases have died in 2010? There are 4 important indices for health administrators. This is the crude death rate, crude birth rate, infant mortality rate, and the maternal mortality rate. All are expressed in a world standard population unit of 1,000. The overall index of health status of a nation is measured by number 1, the infant mortality rate. So because the health of infants is sensitive to maternal health practices, especially from maternal nutrition and maternal use of tobacco, alcohol, and drugs, we have the environmental factors and the quality of health services. The IMR is often used as an overall index of health status of a nation. Next, we have the maternal mortality rate. So maternal mortality is also a general indicator of the overall health of a population or the status of the women in the society and of the functioning of the healthcare system. A high maternal mortality rate are markers of wider problems of health status, gender inequalities, and health services in the country. Crude rates are basic rates that describe the overall incidence or death rate in a particular population without taking into account other features of the population, such as age or sex. It provides very limited information on the health status of a population and has very limited use in program planning. Natural growth rate is equal to the crude birth rate minus the crude death rate. So we have the opposite of the crude rates, which is the specific rates, which take into account the age, the sex, and the risk factors. So it is meant to give a more meaningful picture of the health status of a population. Under the specific rates, we have the standardized rates, which are also called adjusted rates. They are crude rates that have been modified to control for the effects of certain characteristics in the population and allows for a valid comparison of rates. A fair comparison can be made between two populations as long as the comparisons are made using indices, measurements, or values adjusted using standardization. So we have 2 types of standardization of rates. We have the direct standardization. It removes the biasing effect of the different age structures of different population and is done by calculating the overall incidence or mortality rate that you would expect to find in a standard population if it had the same rates as the study population. To use direct standardization, it must have age-specific disease rates in the study population and age distribution of the standard population. So the standard population may be any population, though it's usually often a larger population of which the populations to be compared are part of. Next, we have the indirect standardization, which is used if the population to be standardized is small. This is calculated by the number of cases that would have been expected to see in the study population. Standardized mortality ratio is derived when the observed crude death rate is divided by the expected crude death rate. The SMR is generally multiplied by 100, with the standard population having a value of 100. If the SMR is greater than 100, the force of mortality is higher in the study population than in the standard population. If the SMR is less than 100, the force of mortality is lower in the study population than in the standard population. So here we have a sample problem on standardization. This is a table comparing the death rates in two populations by age. It is categorized by age groups. So we have the young class, the middle-aged class, and the older class. And we have the population size and the annual specific death rates for both population A and B in the columns. And in the last row, we have the crude death rate. So for easy reference, I just put the previous table right above. So please do refer to it so that we won't get lost. We do direct standardization as we standardize the population size by first adding the population of A and B and using this for both populations. So for example, we take the young population, we add 1,000 population size of A and the 4,000 population size of B, and put it in the highlighted part for the young class. So that would be equal to 5,000. For the middle age, we have to add the middle age population size for both A and B, which is 5,000 for A and 5,000 for B. Thus, we get 10,000. So we put that in the highlighted part. Lastly, for the older population, we add 4,000 population size in A to the 1,000 population size in B, and we get 5,000. And again, we put that in the highlighted part corresponding to the older class. So for the expected deaths in blue fonts, we get this by multiplying the standardized population in the highlighted part to the age-specific death rate, which is given, and divide it by 1,000 since age-specific death rate is per 1,000. So for the young in population A, we have 5,000 times 1 as the age-specific death rate in the young, which is equal to 5,000. And we divide this by 1,000, and it would be equal to 5 expected deaths. In the young, in the population B, we get the 5,000 in the highlighted part times 2 of the age-specific death rate, which that would be equal to 10,000 divided by 1,000, and that would be equal to 10 expected deaths, and so forth. When we have gotten all the expected deaths per class, we add the expected deaths to get the total of 605 in population A and a total of 1,210 in population B. The adjusted death rate of population A is equal to the total expected deaths, which is 605 in A, over the standardized total population, which is 20,000, and we multiply this by 1,000 as in the death rates, and the answer would always be per 1,000 population. So we do that also in the adjusted death rate of B, which is equal to the total of expected death in B, which is 1,210, over the standardized total population, which is also 20,000, times 1,000 as in death rates, again per 1,000 population. Now that they are standardized for age, the populations A and B are now comparable. So from these computed values, the adjusted death rate in population B is found to be higher than in population A. Now it can be concluded that the risk of death is higher in population B. So that's how you do direct standardization. For the direct standardization, again for ease, I place the same table for reference here. So we start by borrowing the annual age-specific death rate from the population with the higher population size. So for the young class, since population B has a higher population size of 4,000 compared to A, which is just 1,000, we borrow population B's annual age-specific death rate, which is 2, and put it in the corresponding highlighted part. Then for the middle-aged class, since they have equal population, we just take the higher annual age-specific death rate, which is 20, and put it in the highlighted part. And lastly, for the older class, since the population A has the higher population size this time, we borrow the annual age-specific death rate of A, which is 100, and put it in the corresponding highlighted part. So our adjusted age-specific death rate is laid at 2, 20, and 100. Then, a similar indirect standardization, we compute for the expected deaths again by multiplying the population size to the borrowed standardized age-specific death rate and divide it by 1,000, since the age-specific death rate is reported per 1,000. So for the young in population A, again, we have 1,000 population size multiplied by the age-specific death rate of 2, the one highlighted. We get 2,000, and then we divide it by 1,000, which is equal to 2 expected deaths, and so forth. We do this to all classes. Then again, we get the total expected death, which is 502 for population A and 208 for population B. This will be our denominator later. The observed deaths in red font are the original annual age-specific death rate values in the actual case as given in the first table above. And just the same, we multiply the population size to the actual annual specific death rates. So we have 1,000 in the young for population A times 1, which is the original value of the annual age-specific death rate, divided by 1,000 is equal to 1 observed deaths. For population B, let's go to the older class to hasten things up. So 1,000 population size in B times 200 actual specific death rate as seen in the above table will give us 200,000, which we will divide by 1,000 and get 200 observed deaths in the older class. Again, we also get the total of the observed deaths and this will be our numerator. So we now have the values. SMR, or the standard mortality ratio, is observed death rate total over expected death rate total times 100. So 451 over 502 for population A times 100 is equal to 89.94 for population A. For population B, we have 308 over 208 times 100 is equal to 148.08. Since both populations A and B are now standardized by age-specific death rate, they are now comparable to each other. And since the SMR in population B is higher than population A, it can be concluded that the risk of death is higher in population B. Here we have a table summarizing the differences of direct and indirect standardization. Let us start with the information required in direct standardization, so age-specific rates in study population and age distribution of standard population. And we have this interchanged in the indirect standardization, wherein age-specific rate in standard population as well as age distribution of the study population are both required. For the advantages, direct standardization is good for comparing large population and allows for comparisons between standardized rates for different populations and is used to compare rates across different countries or between large subgroups within a country, like between males and females. For the indirect standardization, this can be used when age-specific rates in the study population are unknown or unreliable for when the population is small and is used to compare incidences or mortality in smaller subgroups of population, like for example, veterans from a particular armed conflict. So we have the use of health indices and other statistical indices. So we have common statistical indices in population studies. First, we have the principal uses of population data in health administration, such as the computation of vital and health statistic rates and ratios, as seen in epidemiological data of an area, which could be a province, region, or country. So setting up targets for coverage of activities and evidence for planning for intervention programs. So if you have a high infant mortality rate due to measles, local government should ensure that the rolling out of EPI program in the health centers must be observed. The population characteristics studied are usually the population size, the growth rate, age-sex composition, geographical distribution, and the fertility. Estimates of population size would include national census, which is done every 5 to 10 years, continuous population registration from birth and death registries, and immigration registries, door-to-door surveys, mathematical estimates, and for the mathematical estimates, we have the arithmetic increase and the geometric increase estimates. The census of a country is a national undertaking recommended to be done every 10 years. If it's done less than 10 years, we would expect big expenditures. If it's done more than 10 years, this will lead to increased errors in estimates based on the last census, since estimates usually assume that the conditions or settings existing in the last census still holds true for the period being estimated. Continuous population registration is the registration of births, deaths, and immigration making the necessary additions and subtractions to the populations. For the surveys, we have the Philippine Statistics Authority, or formerly the National Statistics Office. It is the rough counting of houses in a village and doing census per house, and is used in epidemiological investigation and when constructing the population of 2 municipalities. For the mathematical estimates, we have the arithmetic increase and the geometric increase. For the arithmetic increase, here the population increases at constant amount per year, and we get the difference and divide by the number of years. So here we have an example. The population for July 1, 2000 is 800,000. The population for July 1, 2010 is 1 million. So we are instructed to estimate the population for July 1, 2005 and July 1, 2018. First, let us get the rate between the given years. So for 2010, it's 1 million, and for 2000, it's 800,000 over the year interval of 10 years, which we got from 2010 minus the year 2000. So the rate increase between the given years is 20,000 a year. To compute for the July 2005 population, we get the population from 2000, which is 800,000, and add the interval from 2000 to 2005, which is 5 years, times the rate of increase computed, which is 20,000, and we get 900,000. To compute for the July 2018 population, we get the population from 2010, which is 1 million, plus the interval from 2010 to 2018, which is 8 years, times the rate of increase again, which is 20,000, and we get 1,160,000. Geometric increase is the population increase at constant rate per year. Given the same example, 1 million minus 800,000 over 800,000 divided by the year's interval, which is 10 years, would give us 2.5% rate increase. So every year, the population is increasing by 2.5% in a compound interest fashion, just like the interest rate in banks. So to compute for the population for 2018, we have this formula. X is equal to y times the sum of 1 and delta to the nth power, where X is the population to be determined, Y is the population basis, delta is the change rate, N is the number of years. So we just have to supply the values, and X is equal to 1 million from the 2010 population basis, 1 as a constant, plus the 0.025 rate increase converted to decimal point, and raised to the 8th power, which is our year interval. And we get a total population of 1,218,402 population for 2018. So we have another mathematical estimation example. Given the following population of 52,587,310 in 2010 and 81,538,614 in 2019, compute for the population in 2025 using the following. From 2019 to 2010, this includes 9 years. From 2025 to 2019, this includes 6 years. So for the arithmetic increase method, we have 81,538,614 population of 2019 minus 52,587,310 population of 2010 all over the 9-year interval between 2019 and 2010 is equal to 3,216,811 increase per year. You get again the 81,538,614 population of 2019 and add it to the increase per year, which is 3,216,811, and add 6 years because it is 6 years interval from 2019 to 2025, and you get 100,839,483, which is the total population in 2025 projection. So in geometric method, we start with the base population of 2019 minus the population in 2010 all over the year interval, which is 9, and we get 6.12 rate increase annually. Then we supply the formula for geometric estimates. So again, we start with the 2019 population times 1, which is a constant, plus the decimal form of the rate increase we computed, raised to the 6th power, which is the interval between 2019 and 2025. And we get 116,451,952, and it is the projected population by 2025 using the geometric increase method. So estimates of age-sex distribution provides a way of categorizing whether the population is young, intermediate, or old. It provides a rough picture of the sickness patterns in the population, and the data will be used for planning priority programs in the community or in a region. The Swarup-Imura Index measures the risk of dying for persons aged 50 years and over. A high Swarup Index means aging population, a success in the control of communicable disease, a low infant mortality rate, better sanitation, longer life expectancy, and better economic status. So the higher this rate, the better is the health status of the population. This is a good indicator in comparing the health status of different countries. So quality-adjusted life years is the arithmetic product of life expectancy combined with a measure of the quality of life years remaining. So 1 is equal to perfect health and 0 is equal to death. Disability-adjusted life years is equal to the years of life with disability plus years of life lost. It is used to quantify the global burden of disease and estimates the loss of life, counts both years of life lost due to premature death and years of health lost through disability. So it uses 0 to 1, wherein 0 is years spent in perfect health and 1 is years lost to death. It is the opposite of quality adjusted life years. Thank you so much for reaching this point of the lecture. So here are my references. And again, thank you and have a blessed 2026 and beyond.